After my husband's death, my daughter-in-law declared, "You're just a widow, now you don't get a say." She packed my clothes and garbage bags and said, "Get out of my house." My son refused to meet my gaze. My heart ached as I said, "You'll see how wrong you are when the will is read." It's taken me some time to be able to write this. I still wake up sweating in the middle of the night, clutching sheets like they're going to keep me from drowning in the truth. I wasn't just thrown out of my own home, I was thrown out by my son and the woman he married right after burying my husband of 49 years. My name is Jeanette Parker. I live, or used to live in Woodstock, Illinois. I was married to John since we were kids. Basically, we met at a church fish fry in 1970. He was polite, never flashy. Always did what he said he would. We raised our only son Marcus in a modest ranch house on Maple Lane. The same one John and I bought when I was 25, and Marcus was still in diapers. It wasn't a mansion. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths a yard, big enough for barbecues and snowmen. But it was ours. Every brick had our name on it. John passed away in March. Massive heart attack in his sleep one moment. He was brushing his teeth next morning. I found him slumped over in bed. The silence in that room was heavier than death itself. The funeral was 2 days. Later family came neighbors too. Sarah Marcus's wife showed up in black, but didn't cry. Not once she patted my hand, like I was a sick dog. Then went off with her friends, whispering and texting behind sunglasses. Marcus kept himself busy pouring coffee and talking to the pastor. I didn't think much of it. People grieve differently. But the day after the funeral, Sarah walked into the kitchen while I was making toast. She didn't even look up. I called the donation center. She said, "They're coming too. Take the dishes and old kitchen stuff." I blinked what kitchen stuff. She opened the cabinet and pointed, "This junk, all of it, you don't need it." I laughed a little. "That's my wedding china. Some of that was my mother's." She looked me dead in the eyes. "You're just a widow. Now you don't get." Say, I stood there stunned, my hands frozen around a butter knife. "Excuse me. You don't own the house. Marcus and I do. You were just living here while Dad was alive. That ends." Now she turned and walked out of the room like it was done. I called Marcus. That night while he was working late at the hospital, she said, "I'm being kicked out." I told him. He didn't respond for 5 seconds. Then, "Mom, maybe it's time you consider other arrangements. I don't want conflict." My throat closed up. "I raised you here. I know," he said, tired, "but things are different now." 2 days later, I came home from the grocery store to find black garbage bags on the porch. My clothes, my shoes, my family photo albums dumped in one like trash. She didn't even use boxes. I knocked. Sarah opened the door. Her arms crossed. I said, "I want you out." Behind her, Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table. He didn't look up, just stared at the floor. "I want to talk to my son," I said loud. He didn't move. I said. She snapped, "Get out of my house." That's when something in me cracked. This was my home. "Before you were even born," I said, "John. And I built it, paid every bill, every repair. You're living under my roof." She scoffed. "Not anymore. You don't own it, and you're not on the will." That last line hit me like a slap. She thought she knew everything. I picked up the bags. My hands were trembling. I looked Marcus in the eyes. He flinched but didn't say a word. "You'll see how wrong you are when the will is read," I said. Then I walked out. I moved in with my sister Diane in Aurora. She welcomed me like I was bleeding. I basically was. I stayed in her spare room, surrounded by pillows, smelling like mothballs and cinnamon candles. 2 weeks passed. Then the attorney called Mrs. Parker. "I have a scheduled will. Reading, please bring all concerned parties." I said, "Oh, I'll be there." So will they the morning of the reading. I put on my church coat and drove up to the office. Marcus was already there. Sarah walked in 10 minutes late, chewing gum and pretending to be bored. The lawyer opened the folder. His name was Richard Ellis, Ben John's attorney for 20 years. Per the last will and testament of John Parker, dated April 2nd, 2024. The following are listed as beneficiaries. He listed the house at 402 Maple Lane, my name. The savings account, half to Marcus, half to me, the car to Marcus. But then he paused. He looked directly at Sarah, and lastly Clause 17. Should any beneficiary engage in coercion, harassment, or removal of any other listed beneficiary prior to the execution of this will, that individuals' share shall be null and void and redistributed accordingly. Sarah's face turned red. That means, he said, Mrs. Parker retains the house and inherits all forfeited portions. Per Mr. Parker's request, silence. I looked at Marcus, still no words. The next day, I had legal papers filed, deed, transferred locks, changed. The sheriff posted a notice when Sarah tried to barge in again. I showed her the paperwork. She screamed something about fraud. I didn't flinch. John protected me even after death. I said, you underestimated him. I haven't spoken to Marcus since, but I see them drive by sometimes, slower than usual. Windows rolled up. They didn't just lose a house. They lost me. I thought things would settle after the will was read. I was wrong. The house was mine now legally. The locks were changed. My name was on the deed. I could have lit a candle in every room if I wanted. But instead of peace, I got paranoia. 2 nights after the reading, I was watching TV in the living room. Quiet, just me and the sound of the fridge humming in the background. Then I heard its soft scraping at the back door. At first I thought it was the wind, but then came the rattle. I walked into the kitchen with a flashlight, pulled back the curtain, and saw a shadow duck. Down. I turned on the porch light. No one but in the grass, boot prints fresh next morning. I filed a police report. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. So it didn't go far, but I knew. I called Marcus. He answered, sounding half asleep. What were you at the house last night? I asked. He paused. What are you talking about? There were footprints at my back door. Someone tried to get in. I don't know anything about that. He said quickly, too quickly. Then he hung up later that week. I got a letter in the mail. No return address inside a single sheet of paper that said, you stole it. Nothing else. Block letters. Black ink. No signature. I handed it to the police. They couldn't trace it. I called Diane. They're trying to scare me out. She said, you're not leaving. I wasn't. But I wasn't going to wait around either. I went to the attorney, Mr. Ellis, and asked if John had left anything else. He pulled out a folder labeled Personal Letters. One of them was addressed to me, written in John's shaky handwriting. Inside he wrote, Jeanette, if they fight you, stand firm. I know you're alone now, but I saw things before I died. Sarah talked to me like I was a burden. She threatened to put me in a home once I never told you. I wrote this clause for you. If Marcus lets her push you out, then he deserves nothing. I love you. You always had more backbone than you gave yourself credit for. I cried right there in the office, but it gave me fuel that night. I started digging. I went through old emails, bank statements, documents, found strange transfers from John's account into a side. Account Marcus's name on it. Transfer started 6 months before John died. I went to the bank, asked about it. They couldn't give me much, but one teller young girl, maybe college age, let something slip. She said that's the account Marcus used to help pay off their new deck, and those are luxury appliances, right? I froze. Excuse me. She clammed up fast. Sorry. I shouldn't have said that. They'd used John's money, maybe without his consent. I couldn't prove theft, but I could show motive. I filed for a financial audit on the estate. That's when things got ugly. Marcus called me yelling, "What the hell are you doing?" He barked, "You're going through Dad's accounts now." I want the truth, I said. You don't know what you're starting. Yes, I do, I said. Then I hung up. 3 days later, my front window was smashed. Police came again. They took prints, nothing conclusive, but I knew Sarah wasn't just angry, she was unraveling. And Marcus, he was letting it happen. I started documenting everything. Every noise at night. Every car that parked across the street too long. Every phone call I got with no one on the line. The night before the audit hearing, my phone rang at 2:14. I let it go to voicemail. I played it the next morning. Heavy breathing. Then a woman's voice, low and bitter. You think you've won. You think that house makes you something. You're still just an old lady alone. Click, I send it to the police. They said, unless there's a direct threat, their hands are tied. I knew one thing. If Sarah was this desperate already, she'd make mistakes, and when she did, I'd be ready a week after the voicemail. Something changed. I hadn't heard from Marcus since the audit. Notice, no calls, no texts, no drive-bys. Part of me thought maybe the silence meant they were giving up. Then I got a knock on my door. I opened it to find a woman in a dark gray pantsuit standing on my porch. Miss Parker, she asked. Yes, I'm Denise. Burke from Child and Family Services, may I come in? My stomach dropped. Child and Family Services. I don't have any children. She gave me a tight smile. We received a report regarding unsafe conditions at this residence. We're required to check on all allegations. I let her in. She glanced around, took notes, then asked, do you provide childcare here? I blinked. No. Any children stay overnight? No. Never. She nodded. Thank you, I'll file this as unfounded. I asked, who filed the report? She shook her head. That information is confidential, but I knew Sarah trying to paint me as unstable, maybe dangerous, hoping to build a record. But she underestimated. Me again, I followed up with a private investigator, hired him with what was left of my retirement savings. His name was Eric X. Cop quiet, but sharp. I gave him one job. Follow Sarah 2 weeks later. Eric gave me a report. Turns out Sarah wasn't just angry. She was busy. She'd been visiting a lawyer of her own 3 times in 9 days. The same lawyer who had handled a restraining order case for one of her friends. She was preparing something. Then Eric dropped the real bomb. He found something odd in Sarah's financial records, an inheritance claim she'd filed in her own name, trying to dispute the clause in Jay's will. She's trying to argue coercion, he said, claiming your husband wasn't mentally sound. When he signed the will, that was a problem. John had been clear-headed, but without recent medical assessments. It might look muddy. I needed proof he was of sound mind. That's when I remembered the home videos. John had been filming short clips every week for his grandkids. Something we never shared widely. Just short videos in the living room, talking about life-giving advice. He'd started it after his first minor heart scare, wanting to leave something real behind. I pulled out an old USB drive, loaded it on the computer there. He was sitting upright, wearing his green flannel glasses perched on his nose. Clear voice, clear thoughts, date stamped just 3 weeks before. The will was signed, he said. I've made my choices for the will. I don't care if Marcus or Sarah like it. Jeanette gets the house. That's what I want. They've been distant. She stood by me crystal clear, all on video. I made 5 copies. I mailed 1 to the court, 1 to my lawyer, 1 to Diane, 1 to a lockbox at the bank. 1 stayed with me when Sarah's lawyer sent a letter threatening to contest the will for mental incompetency. My lawyer sent back the video. No lawsuit ever followed, but that didn't stop them from trying other ways. Sarah showed up in my driveway a few days later, middle of the afternoon. I was watering the lawn. She walked right up to me, sunglasses on like she was some damn movie villain. You think this is over? She said. I stared at her. It's already over. She smiled. Marcus and I are moving to Texas. He got a job. You'll die in this cold house alone. I didn't say anything, just let the silence sit. As she turned to walk away, she added, You raised a weak man. That part almost broke me, but then something inside clicked, a kind of cold final awareness. I couldn't change Marcus. I couldn't make him fight for me, but I could make damn sure Sarah never erased me. I walked back into the house, picked up my phone, and made one last call to my lawyer. I said, Let's go after the money transfers if they use John's account without permission. We're not done. But my lawyer warned me it might get messy. Jeanette, this isn't just about a couple thousand. If those transfers were unauthorized, it's theft. And if Marcus knew he's complicit, I said, Good, let's go. We filed an official petition with the probate court to investigate financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. John, the court approved the audit bank records transaction, history's phone logs. It took 6 weeks during that time. I didn't hear from Marcus or Sarah. Not a single word I spent those weeks. In silence, moving through the house like a ghost, I dusted every room, opened every drawer. John once touched, I started sleeping in the master bedroom again. The first few nights I sobbed into his old robe. But then it started to feel like mine again. Then one morning my lawyer called. "We have it." She said Sarah had accessed Jay's online banking from her own IP address multiple times during the 6 months leading up to his death, over $38,000, in transfers from Jay's personal account to a shared account. With Marcus, the records even showed payments to a luxury home appliance store custom furniture dealer and $5,000 to a designer for their kitchen remodel. John never approved those transfers. And they weren't small gifts. They were theft. We filed charges. The district attorney took the case when Marcus was served. He showed up at my door for the first time in months. No call, just him, standing on my porch looking like a ghost of himself. He had dark circles under his eyes, hair grown out pale. "Mom," he said, "please don't do this." I stood in the doorway. "You already did this. You just didn't think I'd fight." He looked down. I didn't know what Sarah was doing. "I swear," I scoffed. "You signed off on those payments. You used the money. Don't play innocent now. I'll lose everything." He whispered. I stared at him. "You already lost me." Then I closed the door. Court hearings started the following month. Sarah pleaded not guilty at first, then flipped the moment she realized how deep the evidence ran. She blamed Marcus. In writing said, he pushed her. Said he told her it was just inheritance. Early Marcus in turn tried to argue he didn't understand the transfers, that Sarah handled the finances. The judge didn't buy it. They were ordered to pay back the full $38,000, plus penalties. Restitution totaled over $55,000 since they didn't have the money. The court placed a lien on their remaining assets, including their SUV and Sarah's business. Sarah lost her license to operate her daycare. Marcus lost his hospital job after the felony charges were filed, the final cherry on top. The bank accounts John had left to Marcus, those were revoked and reassigned to me, under the same inheritance clause Sarah had triggered when she tried to evict me. I got everything, every penny, every right, every inch of the house. 2 months after the judgment, I heard through a neighbor that Marcus and Sarah packed up what little they had left and moved to Amarillo, Texas, rented a small apartment near the outskirts. No car, no jobs, nothing stable. They left behind a reputation in ruins and a family they destroyed. I kept the house refinished, the floors repainted, the walls, turned Marcus's old room into a library, and I kept John's voice recordings in a wooden box on the shelf. Sometimes I play them, just to remind myself who loved me until the very end and who didn't. I've even started hosting Sunday dinners again. Diane comes some neighbors, and lately I've been talking to a retired shop teacher named Walter. From down the street, he brings pies. I'm not angry anymore, but I'll never forget the moment I stood on that porch with garbage bags at my feet and saw my son turn his face away. I hope he remembers it too, because in that moment, he made a choice, and so did I.